rankings are now out. A little change at the top as expected. There at the top, we see Texas Tech, one of the top 4 teams there in America, but everybody else, considering Alabama, considering BYU, Miami, Notre Dame, where would the committee seed these teams? And some of the things we're looking forward to coming up before next week after Conference Championship Week. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, we were really excited about this, not necessarily for what's up top, because Ohio State and Michigan, Ohio State and Indiana, we knew after rivalry week, we knew there would not be a ton of changes there at the top. Don't even really expect much after this past week. But where Alabama, where Miami, where BYU, and where Notre Dame, I think there's a lot of people not necessarily not wanting to know where they're seated as much as why they are. Because I think the why is the most important, because most teams can't change because they don't play.
Look, let's just be honest. This season, I think, is going to be a main factor on why we need to get away from a selection-based model into the college football playoff. It has to turn to an access-based model, because you have the CFP Committee giving reasoning for, let's just say Alabama being in because, they beat these teams, and then you look at Miami and Notre Dame. Well, Notre Dame lost to Miami, so they're in front, or for some reason they're in front.
Right.
When the head-to-head should trump everything. So you have the loser of that game, Notre Dame, in front of Miami. And then you have the winner of the Texas-Vanderbilt game in front, even though Texas has 3 losses. So I just don't get it. I mean, if you want to just say, hey, we have SEC bias, I mean, I don't really care. Just come out and say it at this point, because now I was a little bit shocked at Hunter Yurachek's comments last night. And, I mean, I've been shocked the whole time that they've done the explaining for their reasoning. And it's just come on, guys. We really need to find a better system. And I know it's year 2 of the 12-team playoff, and it's going to get bigger. But
yeah,
it's just – it makes no sense.
Right. It really doesn't. And I think that for a lot of people, the head-to-head, I think, is going to stick in a lot of people's craws. Obviously, yes. Notre Dame and Miami, they played on the field. Now they have the same record, and now neither team will play another game. So it looks like, as of right now, Miami might be stuck, and it looks like the ACC might not get a team in this whole thing anyways. You talked about an access-based model, and I really like that on its surface, but I think the only problem you run into down the road is if, let's just say, the SEC is stacked 5 to 6 teams deep. If you're pigeonholing those top 4 spots, then what does it mean to be able to get those other at-large bids?
Well, I think you bring up a good point, but isn't that kind of what we're seeing in the NFL right now? I mean, the NFC West is stacked.
That's true, yeah.
And it's just a matter of how many teams can you get into the wild card. Theoretically, you technically could get an entire conference into the wild card, but it's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of the game, I think. And the problem I have with the NFL right now is we need to get rid of these top 4 seeds reserved for conference champions and do it like the NBA, where it's just straight seeding. But I think if you lay the groundwork for what you need to do to get into the playoff, that's going to help the health of the playoff in the long run. So have these games laid out preseason, go over these. Maybe, honestly, if you want to expand the playoff, leave there be 3 spots for each of the conferences. And since Notre Dame, I know they're not in a conference, but I mean they're in the ACC and pretty much everything else. Just include them into this conversation here. If we can find a way to lay out, hey, here's what you need to do, it's just going to take away the bias, the politicking out of it. Because right now, I mean, this is just last year we saw maybe 6 teams truly have a chance at the national title.
For sure.
This year, I think it could be any of these teams.
Right, exactly. And for those that haven't been paying attention, let's take a look there at that top 25 as it stands right now, because what I find really interesting is a team that you have been carrying the flag for. You have been carrying the flag for North Texas. It looks like they might be, they could be the G5 representative but I know Tulane's still ahead of them as of right now. I still think there's a path, there's an avenue. James Madison there at number 25. Then you have Iowa, Georgia Tech, and Houston. I know a lot of these teams in the AP poll, the back half of the AP poll was kind of occupied by a lot of SEC teams. You have Missouri in there, Texas, or Tennessee right outside of that top 25. What do you make there of North Texas finally cracking the 20s?
You know, it basically tells me at this point, no matter what, the American is going to get a bid into the college football playoff. Now, James Madison, your hopes pretty much rely on, hey, you got to win the conference championship, and you got to hope the other Dukes in Duke wins the ACC, so that way you can get the second bid. But finally excited to see North Texas crack the top 25. This is a few weeks overdue, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, and obviously, like, we've been talking about this conference for a long time, and I wonder how much the preseason hype for a team like Tulane really helped them out, and not as much love for the Sun Belt really hurt JMU and teams out of the Sun Belt Conference. And JMU will not necessarily have the biggest resume builder because they'll play Troy in the Sun Belt Conference Championship, for a Troy team that has 4 losses so far in the year. And so I just don't know if I can see them vaunting 5 spots ahead to get to Tulane.
You know, you just brought up something that I don't know if you truly meant to bring up, and I'm going to bring it up once we get through this top 25 because you said preseason hype.
Yeah.
And that has been a thing that the committee has held against some of these teams, which I think is just utterly ridiculous that you go back, the preseason, then why do we even rank these teams?
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. I mean, if you're not judging it by what you see on the field, not vis-a-vis what you saw or thought in the preseason, but what actually happens there on the field, I think it's key. And I think that's part of the reason why the Big 12 said this past year, we're not going to do a preseason poll, because they watched some of their teams not necessarily get the in their eyes the fairest shot moving in, and I wonder if more will follow suit. I know the preseason poll is great for us, and it's great for the fans, it's great for people who like to talk about sports,
but it just inadvertently creates bias
100%.
Because now we're seeing some teams like, oh man, these teams are really good. They were ranked so high in the preseason. We got to give them the edge because, you know, coming into the year we thought they were going to be really good. We don't want to embarrass them. Like,
right?
Come on.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Going next inside the top 20 now. You see Tulane. Tulane, as of right now, the highest ranked Group of 5 team there inside the top 20. Then Michigan, Arizona, Virginia, and USC. Speaking of a Virginia team, this is a Virginia team that can punch their ticket, can win the ACC championship with a win there over Duke. But it just lets you know how much. It lets you know how weak this conference is, even though there's another ACC team higher than they are.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing I have against Miami too. Is like, yeah, you're complaining about Notre Dame being in over you. But you can't even make your own conference championship in like one of the worst years that this conference has ever had in football. So, I mean, there is that too. But I think Virginia, obviously, they control their own destiny at this point. Same with Tulane. So, I mean, those are the only two that really matter at this point.
Exactly. And then as we go inside the top 15, now you have Utah, and some of these teams are on the outside looking in. Utah, Vandy, and Texas as of right now. Then you also have Miami inside the top 12 right now. Also BYU here. We talked about Miami at the top of the show. Where do you see, what do you make of Miami being in the top 12, still understanding that there is a designated spot for the G5?
All right, well, I'm just going to go through these 5 here. Utah, you can just count them out. They're done. I mean, they're just done in my opinion. Obviously, they don't have another game. They were never really truly in it to begin with. The fact that the committee jumps Texas over Vanderbilt only because they have the head-to-head when Texas lost to Florida and Vanderbilt is a 10-2 team just blows my mind as well.
Right.
I think that's what I just said. The preseason bias kicking in here. Yes. Texas was the number 1 team in the country coming into this year. And then we have to honor that. Vanderbilt is better than Texas. Vanderbilt is definitely better than Miami.
Yep.
I'm still shocked, and we'll do a comparison here in a minute. But I mean, I understand Miami fans don't like Notre Dame being in right now. I totally get it. Head to head should matter, and it should trump everything when your wins and loss, when your record is the exact same. And I know why no one's talking about BYU right now is because BYU is the only team on here that still can control their own destiny.
Correct.
So I understand why everyone's kind of sleeping on them, because if you beat Texas Tech, then you're in.
Right. That's exactly right. And I see the rationale of putting Texas ahead of Vanderbilt because of the head-to-head. Well, then maybe apply that same logic to Miami and Notre Dame.
I mean, yeah, head-to-head, but head-to-head should matter when the records are the same.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
You cannot put a 10-2 team behind a 9-3 team in the same conference just because you beat them. I mean, that 9-3 team lost to Florida. Who are Vanderbilt's 2 losses? Alabama, who's inside the top 10 right now, and Texas.
Yeah, and I wonder how much Steve Sarkisian basically politicking that his team did not have to schedule Ohio State, and had they just scheduled some non-conference team that's inferior, and they would be 10-2. I wonder how much of that has now saturated the talk around Texas to say, oh hey, this is a 9-3 team. I'll put it to you this way: this is a 10-2 team that is 9-3 because of the way that they schedule, and the way that they schedule so hard. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt of a team that is 10-2 instead of a team that's 9-3. They're looking at them like they have different clothes on, so to speak.
But I go back to what the committee has valued the most right now, and it's the eye test.
Yeah.
Texas does not. I mean, yeah, good job. You beat Texas A&M at home against they hurt Marcel Reed. Good job. I mean, that's one of your good wins here this season. And I know you played Ohio State closer than any team has this year. You looked awful against Kentucky. You looked awful against Florida until you tried to make it a game. You looked awful against Mississippi State for 3 quarters. So you don't pass the eye test.
Right.
So I just don't understand the logic behind it. I guess it's the politicking, but if for some reason Texas gets in at 9-3, there's going to be some angry people.
A lot of angry people. Inside the top 10, there we go. You have Notre Dame sitting there at number 10, with a lot of Miami fans angry about that. Of course, Alabama there at 9, Oklahoma at 8, which also that will boost the resume for Texas, obviously winning the Red River rivalry. Then you have Texas A&M. That's the biggest dropper so far inside the top 10 after losing that game against Texas. They dropped 4 spots down to number 7. Ole Miss is up a spot to number 6. Everybody else also climbing that is not named Ohio State and Indiana. They're inside the top 5, where you have Oregon making their debut in the top 5. Texas Tech also doing the same thing. And then you got Georgia up to number 3. And then the 2 Big Ten teams that have ruled the roost since this thing came out from the very beginning. They'll meet this week in the Big Ten championship, or Ohio State and Indiana. Going back to, I think there's 2 key points here. One, with the ACC overall, I really don't know what you do with this conference, because you could have a 5-loss champion if Duke wins this week. You also could have a Miami team that beat a team that's inside the top 10, and they'll say that they should have been in. You have the ACC commissioner and Mr. Phillips saying, oh, they want Miami and the conference champion in. They want Virginia if Virginia wins. They want Duke if they beat Virginia. Then they want Miami also in there as well. I just think he's, obviously caving up for his conference, trying to get those extra dollars for his league. I doubt that's going to happen at all. But then secondly, I do think this really now shows you, like you said, I think what the committee values. I think if the committee values wins, that's one thing. If you value close losses, that's another thing. If you value a tough schedule, that's another thing. It just seems like everybody's playing by a different set of rules.
Yeah, and it's just inherently biased. I mean, there's just bias within the committee, because you can't just say, Miami and Notre Dame have the same record, but because Miami lost, which, I mean, if we were strictly going off of eye test, I'm all in Notre Dame's favor here.
Yeah,
Notre Dame has looked like the better team over the last few weeks than Miami has. But if we're going to set a standard here, there's no standard. There's zero standard set right now. When you have 2 teams that are 10-2, and they've played each other, the team that won should be in over the loser. I mean, that's just basic knowledge. That's why Texas is above Vanderbilt right now, even though they don't have the same record. But I go back to the Vanderbilt Miami thing, because I've been on this for the last few weeks now. I just don't understand. They're both 10-2. You can see the strength of schedule. Vanderbilt clears Miami by pretty much double. The strength of the record also clears. They score more points per game. Yeah, they allow more points per game, but they also play in a stronger conference. Yeah, they have a worse record against ranked teams, but they played 6
Yes.
compared to Miami's 4. And the one at the bottom there is the one that really sticks out to me. Vanderbilt handles the unranked teams. Miami's
And
two losses
yes.
are to 2 4-loss teams.
Yes.
So I just don't understand. Unfortunately for Vanderbilt, I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for the fans because I know they want the show that is Diego Pavia and this Vanderbilt team into the playoff.
Yeah.
But it seems like at this point it's wraps.
Yeah, it does. It seems like they'll be on the outside looking in. Just like Steve Sarkisian, Clark Lee has been making a pitch for his team to be able to get into the college football playoff. Here's Coach.
We've got a really good football team here, and this is not about narratives and stories. It's about the facts and the data that support a really good football program. And, it's my responsibility to make that case and to make sure that I'm fighting for a team that I believe deeply in, and I believe with every strand of my being deserves a chance to compete for a national championship. I think it's the best thing for college football. I think this group of players and staff have worked really hard to put an exciting product on the field, one that's energized our Nashville community, our Vanderbilt community, but the potential for this goes way beyond that. And, the merits of the case are about strength of record. The ESPN Football Power Index has us ranked 11th in terms of the strength of record. It's about strength of schedule of the teams that are ranked ahead of us. Only 4 have a higher strength of schedule ranking. We played 6 teams that were ranked at the time of our game against them. 4 of those were ranked in the top 15. And so, again, those are measures for the moment to say that was what was perceived about those teams. Our 2 losses came on the road at Alabama, at Texas. They're combined 19-5 in the season. Both of those games played out differently, but both we were within striking distance in the fourth quarter. We're 10-2 against the spread. And again, I don't pay a lot of attention to that, but I know that record against the spread should be closer to 6-6. This is the expected point differential in games. We've outperformed the perception of our program. And I think this perception started at the beginning of the season. We had a team coming off a bowl win against a really strong Georgia Tech team that returned the most production in our league on offense and defense, and it took us all the way up until a win on the road at South Carolina to get ranked and get recognized. I feel like, we've earned every bit of respect that we've gotten this year, and I feel like the gap that we have to close keeps getting bigger,
I think the striking part about that, it was that last sentence, that the gap that they have to keep going, they go over, just gets bigger. And I feel like, just like I said before, it feels like everybody's playing by a different set of rules. He also talked about the preseason poll. I think that Vanderbilt's probably one of the clearest signs how broken this whole system is.
Yeah, and honestly, it's just the bias coming out. I think that, why would we want Vanderbilt? I mean, Vanderbilt's been the doormat for a long time. We need to protect the brand of some of these schools. But let me tell you this. If Vanderbilt doesn't get in this year, they're going to get in sometime soon, because that flip of Jared Curtis, 5-star plus number 1 quarterback next year, I think he's going to come in and start right away.
Yeah.
And, the future is bright. I know some Vol fans don't want to hear it. They were like, Vanderbilt caught us in a down year. Well, Vanderbilt's here and here to stay, because Clark Lee is going to be there for a long time.
I think this is a real rivalry, not just on paper, but also in execution.